Good morning, grade 7 and 8s. I am Mr. L. I am doing my 2-week placement here at your school. Now, I happen to overhear that you are studying ancient civilization in Egypt. And I happen to find these well-written books on the topic of Egypt that I thought I'd like to share with you. With a show of hands, can tell me what the purpose behind the pyramids of Egypt were for? Yes, pyramids were stone monuments built to house the bodies of pharaohs in the family. They were a burial site. And as we know, pharaohs are the rulers of Egypt. Now, for the first book I want to show you is this book here called The Secrets of Pharaohs by Worldbook. Worldbook is a famous writer who talks about history throughout a whole bunch of different topics. And in particular, this one is on pharaohs of ancient Egypt. This is a 48-page book, so not that long, and it contains lots of information surrounding pharaohs. Now, this contains information also that's around pharaohs, like who built the first pyramid. And I'll tell you right now. The pharaoh Zoser ruled Egypt from about 2630 BC. And BC is before Christ, which is a time before now. At the beginning of the Old Kingdom, and Zoser and his queen established a strong central government in Egypt. Many great advances in technology, such as trade, farming, and architecture, was made during their reign. And the nations grew in wealth and power as many new cities rose along the banks of the Nile River. Like pharaohs before him, Zoser began planning a magnificent tomb long before his death. So who built the first pyramid? The answer is the pharaoh Zoser. Pharaoh Zoser was the first Egyptian ruler to be entombed in a huge stone pyramid, and Zoser began a tradition of royal burial in these stone monuments. Pyramids that Egyptian pharaohs continued for more than 1,000 years. 1,000 years is a very long time. I think so. Now, this book I liked because it contains lots of images that can draw you into the history of these stories, these pharaohs. They're very colorful, and they show you what real pictures of these pharaohs look like in their tombs, in drawings, in stone monuments, statues, all of these great things that have to do with pharaohs. Another thing I liked about this book was that it contained a diverse topic surrounding pharaohs, not just who the pharaohs are, but contains their symbols of power, so like their crown. It also contains why they were mummified and why they were placed in these stone pyramids, because they could have been just dug a hole and put them in the ground. But no, they had this huge process of mummification and placing them in these tombs. And this book will tell you why. And another thing that I think that's very important is that this book talks about the women of power, the queens of Egypt. And the queens of Egypt played a vital role in how Egypt came to be, yet they don't nearly get enough spotlight as these pharaohs. And I think that this book does a great job of including them, and then you can learn that there's more than just the male rulers of Egypt, there are also the female rulers. The next book I want to draw your attention to is The Ancient Egyptians, which is by Lila Perl. This is another nonfiction that is it's 112 pages, so it is fairly longer than the last one at 48 pages. However, this one's important because pharaohs, as important they are, and how we like to focus on them about when we talk about ancient Egypt, there is more to ancient civilization life than just the rulers. There's also the people who live there. This book talks a lot about a whole bunch of different castes, such as the farmers, the sculptors, the soldiers, the architects, the scribes, the people who write down the histories on these walls, the people who wrote down the histories so nowadays that we can look at them and see what's happened. I'll read you a little of what one section would look like. I'll look at the farmers for you. The homes of the simplest Nile farmers were made of reeds, or more often of mud bricks, a mixture of mud and straw shaped into molds and baked in the sun. Houses were usually 1 story high with stairs leading up to a flat roof, which they could be used for storage and as a place of rest after the long day in the heat. Pens for animals were attached to the dwellings, and although Herodotus wrote that Egyptian farming was requiring little labor, the rituals and the rigors of the farming year were highly demanding. So it was pretty tough keeping these farms intact and how to keep them running, even though that the actual farming part was little labor. And they had the help of cattle, which are cows and such, ox, which they used to help them plow and put seeds into the ground. Now, what I really enjoyed about this book was that it gives you details on how they lived and what their lives were like and what they lived and what they did. Whereas in the other one, you don't really get that on these people. Another thing I liked was the pictures here were more relating to the other casts as well. So you have pictures of farmers who are working the land here, and there's the cattle pulling the plow. You get sculptures of people at work. These were the weavers, the females who would make the linen that they would wear or craft the equipment such as pots for them. And they also talk about, again, priests and scribes, the priests being the people who are religious, and scribes who wrote down the histories of the ancient civilization. It also talked about quarrymen, which are also stone makers, and craft workers, and warriors, and even captives, because they would have slaves back then. Another thing I want to draw your attention to is that this book has a list of resources that the author has put together that you can further your research in. Here, I'll show you real quick. Right here. And this shows you that there are other things out there that you can go to. So when you want to further your research, you can find these organizations online, or you can find the books here, and you can dive deeper into the lives of these ancient civilizations, these peoples. The last thing I want to talk to you about is this book called The Red Pyramid by Riordan. This is, unlike the other two, this is a work of fiction, so it is not factual, but it is based in Egyptian mythology, their gods and such. If you don't know who Riordan is also the author of The Lightning Thief, which is really popular. The Lightning Thief being in Greek mythology instead of being Egyptian mythology. Anyways, this story I loved, and I'll tell you all about it. It follows the characters of Carter and Sadie Kane, their siblings, and they don't live together, but their father came one Christmas and brought them to the British Museum, where he unintentionally blew up the Rosetta Stone. And this stone they used has an ancient, it's a factual thing in history. This stone they have was what they used to decipher hieroglyphics, so that they would know how to read the walls in which the scribes from this book would write down. Anyways, after that, a whole bunch of ancient gods get released from the stone, ancient Egyptian gods. One in particular comes out, and it basically captures their father and entombs him into this cast, and then sends them away. Both Carter and Sadie escape. However, they have no idea what's going on. I'm sure lots of us can relate with the feeling of confusion when something goes, whoa, and then I have no idea what's going on. Well, that was them. And they go back to Sadie's grandparents' house, where she's been staying with, and they get questioned by police, like, where's your dad, why did he do this, and they have no idea. And their uncle comes, which they don't know at the time, but they figure out, and he takes them to a house, which is a house of training for magicians. However, they don't know what a magician is. Well, they know what it is, but they don't know they existed. And this is where you meet more characters. So Carter and Sadie are the main characters. However, what I really loved about this book was the intricate characters that accompanied them, such as Bast, which is a goddess of the Egyptians. She's a cat, and she was a guardian for Sadie and then Carter when they came together. And they also have other characters such as Zia. And Zia is really important because Zia is the one who introduced them to the House of Life. And the House of Life is a secret organization that has stemmed from ancient times, since the Pharaohs were around. And this House of Life is magicians, and it is a part of their family's ancestry, but they didn't know about it. So the story goes around with them trying to figure out who they are and how they can harness their magical abilities that seem to be coming, and how to save their father and stop Set from destroying the world. And I love the character development. Sadie and Carter are brothers and siblings. They're siblings, and they have that sibling quarrelsomeness where they fight all the time and they disagree, and then once they exist and they have to counter argument. However, when things get tough, they care about each other. They will have each other's backs, and they're loyal to each other. So I want to read you this one section to kind of give you a sense in their relationship and Zia, who trains them. Now to the duel. She summoned her staff and drew 2 circles in the sand, about 10 meters apart. She directed me to stand in one of them and Carter in the other. I've got to duel him? I said. I found the idea preposterous. The only thing Carter had shown aptitude in was summoning butter knives and pooping birds. Well, alright, and that little bit on the chasm bridge deflecting daggers. But still, what if I hurt him? As annoying as Carter might be, I don't want to accidentally summon that glyph that I made in Amos's house and explode him to bits. Perhaps Carter was thinking the same thing, because he started to sweat. What if we do something wrong? He asked. I will oversee the duel, Zia promised. We will start slowly, and the first magician to knock the other out of his or her circle wins. But we haven't been trained, I protested. One learns by doing, Zia said. This is not a school, Sadie. You cannot learn magic by sitting at a desk and taking notes. You can only learn magic by doing magic. But summon whatever powers you can, Zia said. Use whatever you have available. Begin. I looked at Carter doubtfully. Use whatever I have. I opened the leather satchel and looked inside. A lump of wax? Probably not. I drew the wand and rod, and immediately the rod expanded until I was holding a 2-meter-long white staff. Carter drew his sword, though I couldn't imagine what he would do with it. Rather hard to hit me when I'm 10 meters away. I wanted this over, so I raised my staff like I seen Zia do. I thought the word, fire. A small fire sputtered to life, and at the end of the staff. I willed it to get bigger, and the fire momentarily brightened. But then my eyesight went fuzzy. The flame died, and I fell to my knees, feeling as if I ran a marathon. You okay? Carter asked. No, I complained. If she knocks herself out, do I win? he asked. Shut up, I said. Sadie, you must be careful, Zia called. You drew from your own reserves and not from the staff's. You can quickly deplete your magic. I shakily got to my feet. Explain? Will Carter and Sadie learn what they need to in order to save their friends, their family, their father, and the world? I guess you'll have to finish reading this to find out. I have selected a few other books that you want to take a look at after, and I hope you are able to learn something useful and that you would take a look at one of these books. That's all I have for you today, so happy reading.